Just a minute. Okay, you're live.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Let the record today reflect it's Friday, September 24th, a few minutes after 8:30. The board is convened to consider its first case, which is a elevator division adjudication. It's case number 21-0108, and it deals with the Bay Villa 7, Building 7, Lakeside in Marblehead, and the division's adjudication number is noted on our docket. Let me ask, is Mr. Gable or anybody present on behalf of the appellant? Didn't think so. Mr. Updike, would you enter your appearance, please?
Charles Updike, Chief Elevator Inspector for the state of Ohio.
Good morning. What can you tell us about this case? You can swear in. Oh, that's true. Good point. Chip, you'd stand, raise your right hand. Sandy, would you administer you?
Do you swear from the whole truth and nothing but the truth, help you God?
I do.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Well, this is obviously Building 7, and this is the 7th variance for this project. The platform lift is exceeding 14 feet of travel in a nutshell. Owner seeking a variance for the building to exceed 14 feet of travel of the enclosed platform lift. ASME 18.1 section 2.7 restricts the total travel not to exceed 14 feet. This vertical platform lift will have a current travel of 20 feet and 3 landings. Like I said, the project location has other buildings with similar installs and approved variances, and I have no objections or conditions.
Any questions, Mr. Updike?
Is this the last, do you know, Chip, is this the last one or is there more?
I don't know. I certainly hope it is.
Oh, no, I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm just curious. I mean, I think I can remember several of these just in my short time.
Yeah, and on that point, we don't have Mr. Herring, but I think he's recused himself, has he not, on all these? I mean, he's got some, family member or something that owns a condo right there.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm for it.
Yeah, I don't have any objections.
I don't either.
I would entertain a motion under those circumstances.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals case number 21-0108, the appellant is Legends Construction for the premises Bay Villas 7 at 2640 South Waterside Court, Lakeside, Marblehead, Ohio. The appellant is Charles Updike, Chief Elevator Inspector for the state of Ohio, and adjudication order number E2021-67464. I move to grant the variance without condition and noting the no objection of the Chief Elevator Inspector.
Yeah, that motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, variance is granted without condition. I think that's it for you, right, Chip?
Yes, it is. Thank you, men. Have a good weekend.
You do the same.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, Susan, do we have a parties for remote Portage County cases?
I'm not sure. We have Ryan McNutt, but I'm not sure about James or Scott if they're attending with him. It doesn't appear to be.
What about the CDF?
Yes, Randy Roberts and his team are. Okay.
Okay, well, let's give it a shot. We're going to call case number 21-0103. It's Portage County adjudication, and Portage County's adjudication numbers noted on the docket. And this deals with the premises located 42 Sunnybrook Road in Brimfield Township. Let's have an introduction of the parties, beginning with those who are present, that are going to represent the appellant. State your full name, spell your last, and the capacity by which you're
My name's Ryan McNutt, architect, F&B architect, the project.
Is Mr. Turek or Mr. Flynn going to accompany you?
It does not appear so.
And you're comfortable proceeding, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Have an introduction of the applicant, the building officials, and then the fire officials.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Randall Roberts, Roberts, Director, Building Official, Portage County Building Department. Bill.
William Ross, ROSS, Backup Building Official and Master Plan Examiner, Portage County Building Department.
Thank you. And anyone else? Anyone from-
That's it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's have Mr. McNutt and the other. Let's have everybody stand. Raise your right hand. Sandy, administer the oath.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, primarily for Mr. McNutt's benefit, we're a board of 5. Today, we're only a board of 4 because of an issue that arose with one of our board members. And so the statistical likelihood of a split vote is greater, we think anyways, with a board of 4. If there were split votes, kind of an advantage to the building official because the adjudication order would stand in that case. Are you comfortable going forward in front of this board of 4, or would you prefer to have it set down to a time when we would be a board of 5?
No, I'm comfortable moving forward with the board of 4.
Fair enough. Okay, Mr. McNutt, you have the floor.
Yeah. So we're doing site improvements to Aero Industries. The company provides tarps for semi-trailers where they wrap the over top of them. What we're trying to do with the site improvements, we're providing concrete and asphalt pavement around the site. Right now, it's currently gravel. One of the site improvements is to have an open air, non-combustible steel structure that we can put materials underneath, basically the raw materials, the metal, the aluminum bars, again, all non-combustible materials. We have it within about 6 feet of the existing building. And this is a life safety issue. If we move it away from the building, as you see in your site plan that you have up on the screen, the shaded region against the existing building is this non-combustible structure, open air. If we move it away from the building, we now create a hazard for the employees because they get materials via a forklift or just by the personnel walking and carrying them back and forth to the existing building. We're trying to limit any extra traffic where they have to cross the pathway where the semis are coming around and circling back and forth. We just don't want to provide a undue hazard for the employees. With this structure, we are providing a masonry wall between the existing building and the metal lean-to. That way, we're trying to protect from fire if there's anything that happened to the existing building or with the materials out in the yard. Again, it's all non-combustible that we're storing underneath there. The lean-to itself is non-combustible, so that's what the variance we're asking for, so we don't shift our lean-to away from the existing structure. And we're not touching the existing structure, we're leaving it as is.
Okay, any questions for Mr. McNutt? Members of the board.
Yes, is the issue that the lean-to area takes the building over a tabular area or something like that? What's the issue with it?
So the existing building was grandfathered in under Chapter 34. And if we were to touch the existing building or add to it, we would then exceed the allowable square footage of that. So that's why we're not trying to touch or do anything with the existing structure.
Yeah, but you have an addition to it. I mean, irregardless, it is an addition to it. It should be included as part of the area. So that's why I'm just asking what is triggering it, that's all.
Okay. Yes, that would be.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. McNutt? I have none, thank you.
Yeah, I do have one more question. So the CMU wall, is that going to be a rated wall, or is there are you calling that out to be a rated wall or just a new wall?
No, we are calling it out to be a rated firewall.
to what extent? 1 hour, 2 hour?
We're grouting it solid. I mean, we'll get the 4 hours out of it.
Okay.
Just do it what? Routing?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also going to let Mr. Ross, my backup building official and plans examiner who reviewed these plans, to comment. But before we begin, if I may, for some clarity, as I review the drawings, and not to throw any shade on Mr. McNutt here, but on the set of drawings on drawing A401, sheet 401, he identified in his commentary that the building's about 6 feet away, and actually on their drawings, they define it. They've created an imaginary property line 8 inches off the existing building, with a total distance between the two buildings of 3 foot 1 inch, which also drove us into our review as we presented it. With that said, I'll let Mr. Ross pick up the commentary based on our review and our adjudication.
Thank you, Board. Again, just as a review, the existing building was approved under a Chapter 34 review, which we do not have in our records, so I can't attest to what the conditions were for that. However, we know, based upon the current code, the existing building exceeds the allowable square foot limit. So our concern then became, when you had put this new structure adjacent to it, it obviously would exceed the allowable area for it if it were part of an addition as opposed to a separate building. So the architects have put an imaginary property line so this becomes a separate building on the same lot. And as Mr. Roberts just described, it's very close to the existing building. Under the code then, our requirements come in that the existing building would have to be fire rated from both sides, the inside and the exterior of the wall. And we understand that they clearly prefer not to do that. And I think from our perspective, they do have an option of actually moving the proposed structure across the new drive, not impacting anything as I see it, but I think the owner probably doesn't agree with that. But I think they have an option to not impact the existing building. But what the proposed structure does is eliminates that whole side of the building from fire department access, as well as posing some fire rating issues for the existing building. And that's the reason for the appeal. Now that I will say, I think we've discussed this issue with the appropriate fire department. I don't know that they have an objection to what has been presented. And I think from our perspective, speaking for the building department, I think we don't have a particular objection to it as well, except that the code issues are clearly defined and we're not compliant.
Okay, questions of either Mr. Roberts or Mr. Ross?
I'm sorry?
No, I was just asking the board if they had any questions of either of the two of you at this point. Okay, hearing none, what are our thoughts moving forward?
So let me ask a question to my patriots here. I understand that the building is analyzed or grandfathered under Chapter 34, but from a practical standpoint, would it make more sense this, instead of this space, what is it, 3 foot space between the lean-to wall and the existing building wall, to just build the thing up against the existing building so that there's no space between it, and grant a variance based on that versus create this void area that is nothing but a danger for people and trash and eventually for combustibles to, collect as time goes on?
Yeah, but tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. McNutt. I mean, it's open. It's a column. That's the wall. And that space is it open on the backside as well too?
For what? What's open?
The lean-to addition. is that a wall or is that just, are those columns?
Those are just columns. It is, the structure itself is open. It's the masonry wall that you're seeing behind it.
So this is the masonry wall at the lean-to addition?
Correct.
That wall is continuous.
I thought that masonry wall, I was looking at it backwards. I thought this was the addition.
No,
No, that's the existing structure. Yep. We were building it and creating that imaginary line off of the existing building to keep the structure, the footings and everything completely separate from touching the existing building.
I think I agree with you, Joe. I think that the 3-foot space there is creating a greater hazard. I'd rather have this thing just right up next to the building. Anything?
I do. I mean, again, I think, you know, having worked in factories and whatnot, I mean, stuff flies out over, you know, you got trucks coming in, you got product and banding and wrapping and whatever, and just stuff flies around and gets all over the work site. I mean, eventually combustibles have the high potential to accumulate in that area. I would be more comfortable if the two were butted up against each other, the existing building and the masonry wall.
And I think I agree.
Well, let's hear from Mr. McNutt, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Ross on that.
For myself, I'm comfortable moving it up against the existing structure, keeping the masonry wall. But we're comfortable doing that if that's what would be approved.
the only concern I would see if we did that is that we have a drainage issue from the existing building. We have a roof overhang and a drain that would have to be dealt with as at this part, apparently an interior drain that would have to be dealt with.
That a game changer?
I don't think so. I mean, I think based on this drawing, you've got to install a drain anyway, correct?
It's existing.
Yeah, the building on the wall to the left has an existing drain, and we just brought that up as an issue that the designer would have to compensate for that as part of that drawing.
So Mr. McNutt's aware of that.
Yes, we would have to rework the storm there.
And the roof.
How do we frame a motion? Let's go off the record for just a second. They need to read that.
Resubmit plans to.
Showing that. This was designed as a firewall.
Because then our very,
We're off the record.
yeah, so I don't want to speak for Paul, but I would think that our conditions of any variance are going to be based on what's proposed in revised drawings, right?
That's true.
I think it needs to be continued though. I mean, if we did that.
You say you do think it?
No, I don't.
Oh,
But they walk out of your paper in hand that says what? That's what,
We would just be conditioned, right? So the lean-to addition shall abut the existing building. And separated by a minimum 2-hour rated wall or 3-hour rated wall, whatever you want to call it. Add a condition to the. Yeah, all right, I agree. The lean-to has to stay.
oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Somewhere down the line. Wouldn't be nice to.
Does that change the area of the building then?
Yeah, I think it does anyways. That's why I would want anyways. Right there. Practical maintenance for fire separation distance, not the way to It's right there.
We get the grant variance in for the area. Isn't that much changing area?
That's, yes, Mr. Roberts. All right, let's go back on the record.
If I may, to the board,
Yes.
this is Ross. The drawing that you have on the screen currently is not current. The block wall that you see is designed as a fire wall, and it has an extension above the existing roof, 3 foot clear. So the drawing you're looking at isn't quite accurate at the roof line of the proposed structure. It extends 3 foot above the existing roof line. That's the current drawings that we have that we are looking at for the appeal.
No, that's correct. It does extend above it as a firewall.
Thank you, Ryan.
Well, what we're proposing to do, and you know, maybe we do need a continuance. We're proposing that this interstitial space that's in between these two is actually more of a hazard than putting the lean-to addition right up next to the existing building and giving a variance on the building area, still keeping a 2R rated wall there. But then I would not want to call it a firewall. I don't think it necessarily needs to extend up that high, so they can deal with the, with the gutters and the drainage and stuff like that, even if it has to eventually drop down onto the lean-to roof. So ask Mr. Roberts if he thinks, hey, do we need to do a continuance, get some revised drawings in, modify the adjudication order to be for an area variance and not necessarily a fire separation distance variance.
Yeah, this is Mr. Roberts. Mr. Bagan, I agree with your comment. As we were listening to the discussion off the record and looking at our drawings, I think that would be a wise move for both the appellant, for the board, and for my office to get revised drawings so we can take a look at those and then make a decision based on that review and subsequent revised appeal.
Comments, Mr. McNutt?
Yeah, we're happy to move the lean-to up against the existing structure, provide the updated drawings and everything for that. Going for the area variance, is that something we'll have to come back through the State Board of Appeals here for that variance, or is that something through this we can provide a continuance approval where the Portage County Building Department can then approve it and help us move forward?
Mr. Roberts, you have a comment on that?
I don't, only because I don't want to speak for the board. This is before the board at this time, so I wouldn't want to jump into that, into your area of expertise and responsibility. Because I don't know what we're going to see at the new drawings.
Yeah, here's what I recommend. Let's continue the case. We will hold it open. Have new drawings submitted for Mr. Roberts to review. If he needs to modify the adjudication order, I think we could do that in the context of this current variance, right? It's the same issue, right? So we would. We would call it a gentle modification of the adjudication order just to get us to where we need to be. And so, Mr. McNutt, yes, you appear back before us, but not having to apply again through a whole new process, right? We're just going to take a little bit of a break, do a continuance. You're going to get some things back in, and as soon as you are able to get those into Mr. Roberts and schedule with Ms. Steer to get back before us, we'll pick up kind of where we left off today.
I think we also probably should have a fire department approval of this proposed change, because at that point it allows them no access whatsoever to the existing building.
I think that's correct, and I don't want to speak for the fire official. Maybe I'll let Chip do that, but no fire official is going to send their firefighters down in that space in between the buildings if there's a fire event.
That's correct.
Right, so that's why I think it's probably more of a hazard than putting that lean-to right up next to it, because at least they can get to it.
Okay, I think that's, we're to a point where I would entertain a motion to continue that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals.
Motion's been made, is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. McNutt, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Ross, that will be continued. And I think you know what you have to do, Mr. McNutt, you got some homework, and we'll see where that plays out.
Good. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have another Portage County case. Is that set for, that's still set for the 8:30 slot, so, Susan, do we know whether we have, the appellants present?
We have Sean Thompson present.
Mr. Thompson, will, Alan Ferris be attending?
He's muted.
He may be muted.
You're still muted.
There he is. There you go.
There we go. I had to figure out which button. I believe the owner, Mr. Ferris, is on the chat. I don't know if he intended to speak, but I am prepared to speak on behalf of the project.
Okay, we'll call the case then. I think that's fine. Mr. Roberts and Mr. Ross, will anybody be attending with you besides yourselves?
Yes, also with us, I'll have the fire safety inspector for Ravenna Township speak. Please go ahead and tell them who we are.
Matthew Frawley, Fraley, certified fire safety inspector for Ravenna Township Fire. Good morning.
All right, and Mr. Thompson, go ahead and enter your appearance if you would. Let me do this. I haven't called the case yet. I should probably do that. This is case number 21-0109. It deals with the Ferris Indoor Storage Facility located in Ravenna. Portage County is the adjudicator, and its adjudication number is noted on the docket. Mr. Thompson, go ahead now and enter your appearance, please.
Yes, my name is Sean Thompson. I am an architect with Team Manfors and Associates Architects, and we are the architect for the project.
Okay, and then Mr. Roberts, you, and then after that, Mr. Ross, and we've already heard from Mr. Frawley.
Yes, Randall Roberts, ROBERTS, Director, Chief Building Official, Portage County.
William Ross, ROSS, Backup Building Official, Master Plan Examiner, Portage County Building.
Okay, then if Inspector Frawley, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Ross, and Mr. Thompson would stand, raise your right hand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Primarily for Mr. Thompson's benefit, there's only 4 of us here today. We're a board of 5. Statistically, the possibility of a split vote is greater when we're a board of 4 than when we're a board of 5. If there were to be a split vote, doesn't often occur, the adjudication order would stand. So we would be open to continuing the matter to allow you to present in front of a board of 5, unless you're willing proceeding today before us as a board as we're presently constituted.
Yeah, we are comfortable proceeding today with the board of 4. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. You have the floor.
All right. So we have 2 items. One that came to our attention is we have an existing. It was designed as a retail building, a strip center. The building has changed hands, and that owner is. We want to convert this building to indoor storage. So this is indoor self-storage. The building is of such a size, though, that it clearly exceeds the allowable area. So our intent was to divide the building into 4 separate buildings, separating the structure and building concrete block firewalls inside the existing structure through it to separate into those 4 buildings. It came to our attention, though, that there was a discrepancy between the Ohio Building Code and the Ohio Fire Code. So whereas the building code allows buildings of S1 to be up to 8,000 square feet without a sprinkler, the Ohio Fire Code limits that to 2,500. And so our buildings, in the exhibit that we submitted, we have the areas on there, and they're all in the 5,000 square foot range. If you go to they're on the title sheet, the first sheet, I think they have all the areas listed. So I guess our request is that we are asking the appeals board to allow us to design this to the 8,000 square foot allowable without the sprinkler as prescribed by the building code versus what is prescribed in the fire code of 2,500 square feet.
Okay, questions, Mr. Thompson, by members of the board?
We have an estimate, or do you have an estimate to sprinkle the building?
We had not gotten an estimate. Currently, we looked at the cost when this was a strip center, when we were doing it, designing it before as a strip center, and the cost was $100,000.
What's the overall cost of the project?
It's far less than that. The 100,000 would be a huge portion of that. But we're probably to build all the interior walls. The exterior is all is erected essentially, so that part's an existing building. But we're probably between building the firewalls and building out the inside, we're probably about $200,000. I guess we also, I'm not aware of any self-storage buildings that are limited to 2,500 square feet in area.
Okay, hearing no further questions of Mr. Thompson, let's move to Mr. Roberts and or Mr. Ross.
Yeah, this is Mr. Roberts. I can only, on this particular appeal, since it is for the fire code and the fire department, we have no adjudication on this item. I can only confirm to the board that, yes, there is an anomaly between the same code section in 2017 OBC and fire code that they are not aligned. The building code's 8,000 and it's 2,500. So in discussions with Mr. Thompson and with the Ravenna Township Fire Department, in a group meeting, it was decided the best way to approach this, since there is that anomaly, is to let the Board of Appeals kind of shake this one out. So with that said, I'll turn the floor over to the fire department.
Mr. Frawley.
Good morning. Sorry, yeah. My chief wasn't able to make it due to his full-time job. I have a letter to be read in, I guess.
Okay. Go ahead.
Dear Board of Building Appeals, the Ravenna Township Fire Department is in receipt of your notice of hearing for case number 21-0109 dated September 22nd, 2021 for today's date at this morning via Microsoft Teams. As the part-time fire chief from Ravenna Township, he is obviously not available to attend this above mentioned hearing due to being at his full-time job, and he requested that this letter be read in as regarding the appeal.
Verbatim.
As referenced in our review of on 8/24/2021 per the Ohio Fire Code section 1307709 903.2.9 Group S1, an automatic sprinkler system shall be provided throughout all buildings containing a Group S1 occupancy where one of the following conditions exists. 5. A Group S1 section used for the storage of upholstered furniture or mattress exceeds 2,500 square feet. This square footage value is in contrast with the same section of the 2007 Ohio Building Code, in which that threshold is 8,000 square feet. The fire department is familiar with this building, which has been constructed but never completed nor occupied. I am aware of the now proposed building revisions by the owner and their design professional, and the fact that the building as planned meets the minimum standard of the Ohio Building Code. I am confirming that should the Board of Appeals agree with the applicant's appeal and concurrent agreement by the building officials, that I am in support of the appeal as presented. Thank you, Chief Mark Kozak.
Difficult to ask a letter questions, but any questions of Mr. Frawley with relation to the chief's letter? Okay. Mr. Thompson, do you have anything further at this point?
Do we address the second item that was adjudicated? This was through the county, which was the fire department ingress door.
Let's do one at a time, please.
Okay, then we have nothing more on the area.
I have a question for Mr. Thompson. Well, are you storing upholstered furniture in these storage units?
Well, it is a self-storage building, so there is only so much that the owner would be able to limit what people can store. But you know, I know from my own experiences using the storage, I've put a mattress or a piece of upholstered furniture in there. So I would assume that people storing their furniture, storing their goods would do the same. But it is not bulk storage of upholstered furniture or mattresses.
Is there a fire alarm and detection or fire detection and alarm system in the building?
We do not have a fire alarm or detection system in the building as designed currently.
Well, the request has been made that we vet this issue separate from the second issue. Want to do that at this point, or do we want to hear about from on the second issue and deliberate with respect to both? I'm open.
We'll come back to see what the second issue was.
Hopefully 50 feet apart, 51 foot, 4 inches.
Right.
Yeah, I think this upholstered thing has come up before. I think it's storage unit.
Let me add to the board thing, and this is just how that I have read it, and I think we've actually approached it this way before. This actually, access should be provided for within every 50 feet of any point on the back of the building, which means that the doors are actually supposed to be 100 feet apart. Get to a door within 50 feet, not that the doors are 50 feet apart. So that we can talk about that as a different interpretation, but that was always my understanding.
Okay, but with respect to the issue that's.
Yeah, I mean.
Get my code book out.
I have 32111.
Both round 4.
Yep.
30,000, roughly 1,000. It's a decent building, but it's not ginormous.
No, right. Personally, I don't see a problem with it. Again, how we work with purposes. Seen a bunch of storage units, right? Not a single one of them had this issue brought up. It is in the code. It is an issue. I think this is probably, for us, for this particular case, we can decide to grant a variance or not. But I think we also have to give direction or ask direction from the Board of building standards on this particular issue to issue an advisory to all of their, all the CEOs, hey, this item in here for all storage buildings means that either applies or does not have to apply, right? Yes, there could be mattresses, yes, there could be furniture in there, can't really tell what's gonna be in there.
Difficult to police.
Right, and it's very difficult to police.
I mean, I guess from a fire official standpoint, I always assume that in these storage facilities, the worst case scenario
Yes.
that, you know, it's full of plastics, it's, you know, there's propane tanks in there, there's 5-gallon cans of gas. I mean, you just, because there is absolutely no way to police what's in the storage unit. Jimmy Hoffa in one of them. Well, I would be in favor of the variance. I think from, if this were a multi-story building, then I would be of a different opinion, but being a wholly ground floor, I would support the variance.
I would too. Does that encompass the second item? The doors.
Yeah, quitting with Paul.
Well, let's, I think we will ask building department officials their thoughts on the doors.
All right. Mr. Roberts, you have the floor relative to the door issue.
Good, Bill.
This is Ross, this is William Ross. The issue that we're looking at is the windowless story provision under the Ohio Building Code 903. The issue is the separation of the ingress doors for fire department access. Looking at buildings 2 and 3 are the ones that were cited. If I might, I would suggest that the building number 3 as designed, the doors probably are slightly more than the 50 feet separation requirements. I don't see that I have a particular problem with that location as shown. However, I think on building number 2, there are some remedies that will allow this particular building to be in compliance by simply interchanging the restroom area with the adjacent storage to the left. And that would make the existing doors that they're showing to be in compliance. So if they did that, that would be a fully compliant building on building number 2. And I have no objections to the existing doors as shown on building 3.
Okay, and does the inspector need to weigh in on that? Inspector Brawley?
It's okay.
It's okay.
Questions with respect of either of the parties with respect to the door issue?
I guess what's Mr. Thompson's?
Thompson?
If I could just, I appreciate Mr. Ross's comment. The reason why the bathroom is where it is, which we are adding in building 2, is we were really just trying to work with the existing doors as they were already in the back of the building, and they're spaced about 52 feet. We very well could flip the bathroom and take the exterior door out and do what he's proposing. We were just trying to stick with as many of the existing door locations as possible. That's all.
Again, I appreciate it. Just for the board's knowledge, the existing exterior walls it's a post and beam construction, and there's no insulation, there's no interior framing. The only thing they have was a metal exterior skin.
Okay,
So it's a matter of removing the door and putting up another sheet of
That's correct, sir.
metal.
So just so I understand this, if we were to approve a variance and it would be conditioned upon relocating the door and restroom to the satisfaction of the building official, would that?
That would be correct, Mr. Bagan.
Okay.
Comfortable with that, Mr. Thompson?
We are.
And just so that, maybe I understand the position or the building department on the 2,500 square feet for mattress and things, your comfort level on that.
Our comfort level has to.
So we have two code sections, right, that are, one is kind of this fire code thing, which probably doesn't come into play because the other one is gonna override it anyway.
Correct. That's correct. The fire code issue is not a building code issue. Our building code, we wouldn't have even addressed that issue because we are well within the 8,000 of the OBC.
We did not adjudicate that under the OBC.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'm not understanding that. So is that the 2,500 square feet for upholstered furniture mattresses? Is that in the building code or in the fire code?
In the fire code.
That is
that appeal is for the fire code and the fire department, not for the building code and building department.
Okay, so that little, I'm looking for that little section. Hold on, because you gave it to us here.
It's not in our adjudication.
Yeah, it's only in the fire adjudication review.
Okay.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with the building department's position on this, but at the same time, when the fire inspector goes to enforce the fire code, it then creates an issue. So while I'm not 100% in agreement on how this is teed up, I think for the benefit of the building owner, you should grant the variance on the sprinkler issue, just so it's not creating problems in the future when the fire inspector goes out there and says, well, here's what the fire code says, and you're not in compliance. I realize it's kind of a legal semantics, hoops, whatever, but
Can we do that? That would require a citation. Because
well, he's already reviewed the plans and added his note, his adjudication. So we technically have an adjudication from the fire official. Mr. Frawley, you want to comment on that?
We have an adjudication, yeah.
Yeah, we were just basing that off of the fire code. I don't really have much else to put in. That we were hoping, obviously based on the fire code that we needed the sprinkler based on the size and, that's about it.
well, what do you think, Carl? I don't think we can get there. I mean, typically, the building departments will ask the fire department for their review, and incorporate those in as part of a plan review, right? But ultimately, it's up to the building people.
Unfortunately, we don't have the authority to do that under the Ohio Building Code. This building meets the Ohio Building Code, and we've clearly discussed the issue with the fire department, and we recognize the dichotomy between the fire code requirements and the building code requirements for suppression due to the area. This clearly was recommended to the fire department to issue an adjudication and take this appeal to the board for resolution. We don't have a standing to enforce the fire code.
The chief, in the letter, as I recall the letter being read to us, indicated that he could support the variance with the concurrent support of the CBO. Is that how, did I hear that correctly?
Okay. Yes, that's correct. This is Mr. Roberts. That's what I'm looking at his letter we got a copy of late last night about midnight, showing up on our emails from the fire chief. And yes, the last statement, let me reread that for the board's benefit. It says, I am confirming that should the Board of Appeals agree with the applicant's appeal and concurrent agreement by the building official, that I am in support of the appeal as presented.
Do we have the concurrent support of the CEO, Mr. Rogers?
Yeah. Thank you for putting me on the spot for the moment, Mr. Chairman. Yes, based on the fact of these S1 buildings, I think the original, if I may have a moment to just share with the board my thought, the S1 building and this code, our code and the building code and concurrent fire code was thought about, I think, with large storage buildings of warehousing furniture and upholstered furniture and bedding and so forth, and hasn't drilled down to these typical self-storage buildings that we see so frequently. And so we have to apply what we have. Based on the condition, knowing the building, knowing the fire department, knowing how the building is constructed and its access, I would be in agreement that if the board decided to grant the appeal, and as the fire chief has stated in his letter, I wouldn't have a problem with it, especially because it doesn't affect our code, and I think they're in concurrent with that and would be fine.
Okay, let me ask now. Does that allow us to get there now?
I think so.
I think we're stretching
Well,
it.
Yeah, I mean, without calling the AG to see if this is an adequate path, I think we're gonna do the best that we can. To grant the variance and go, and it would require one of these entities to challenge that. Or
Unwind.
Right, unwind it.
Agreed. All right, bear with us, gentlemen.
That's all I can do.
Okay, I have, go back on that.
I think we are.
Okay.
We never went off.
Sorry, I put some conditions up on the screen there. Let me read through them. Variance is conditioned on the following. Number one, the exterior door 02B located near the restroom shall be relocated to the satisfaction of the building and fire officials. And number two, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, building area, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
Okay, Mr. Thompson. Any comments with respect to those proposed conditions that is proposed at this time, or any questions?
No questions, and we take no exception to those recommendations or conditions.
Mr. Ross and Inspector Frawley.
No objections from the building department?
No objections from the fire department?
All right, I would entertain a motion.
I just got 5 screens open. Come on, I could get there. Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals case number 21-0109. The appellant is Alan Ferris, Storage Partners, for the premises Ferris and/or storage at 2904 State Route 59 in Ravenna Township, Ohio. The appellee is Randall Roberts, building official for the Portage County Building Department, and adjudication order number 221. 0000309-R1. I move to approve the variance subject to the conditions previously read in the record. I believe I can say, on noting no objection of the building and fire officials.
Yeah, you can. Okay, that motion I think is properly framed. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, by unanimous 4-0 vote on this board, variance is granted, on those conditions. Anything further, Mr. Thompson, to come before the board
We have nothing further. Thank you all for your time.
from the Portage County Building Department?
Nothing from our side. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you stand adjourned on that case. Thank you. Okay, do we have our in-person Licking County? Yeah, come on up. Anybody need a break?
Yeah, but once they sit down, I'll step out.
Yeah. Okay, we have everybody.
Yeah.
We're not missing anyone. Okay. All right.